Hey everyone, if you're a web dev, you know JSON. It's everywhere, right? It's literally the language of the modern web. But are you really using JavaScript's built-in JSON tools to their fullest? I mean, really getting everything you can out of them? Well, today we're going to change that. We're going to master the methods that make handling data not just easy, but actually kind of elegant and super powerful. Okay, so let's kick things off with a problem every single one of us has faced. You've got this beautiful, complex JavaScript object, right? It's got nested properties, arrays, the whole shebang, and now you've got to send it somewhere, over a network to a server, or maybe you need to store it in local storage. So how do you take that complex living thing and just flatten it into a simple string? That's the core challenge we're going to tear apart today. All right, here's the game plan. First up, we'll look at the stringify problem. You know, the old manual way of doing things. Then we'll see how JSON swoops in to save the day. After that, we'll get into the gnarly stuff, handling really complex objects. Then we'll do a complete 180 and turn those strings back into objects. And finally, we'll cover how to revive your data to make it perfect. Then we'll wrap it all up. Sound good? Let's get into it. Okay, let's kick things off with section 1, the stringify problem, or as I like to call it, the manual painful way. Seriously, before we had a standard for this, every developer was out there on their own, trying to reinvent the wheel. It was like trying to pack some super complicated IKEA furniture into a tiny box without the instructions. Yeah, it was that fun. So the old school approach was, hey, I'll just write my own toString method. And yeah, for a super simple object, that might work for a minute. But check out the problem on the right. What happens the second your object changes? You add a new property, you rename another one, and bam, your whole custom function just breaks. It's incredibly brittle, a total nightmare to maintain, and it just does not scale at all. But thankfully, we don't have to live in that dark, fragile world of custom code anymore. No, JavaScript has this beautiful built-in solution that was a total game changer for how we exchange data on the web. And that solution, of course, is JSON, JavaScript Object Notation. You can think of it as the Esperanto of data. It's the universal language that everything understands because it's just a simple text format. Your JavaScript front end can talk seamlessly with a backend written in Python or Java or Ruby, you name it. It's the ultimate translator. Okay, so check this out. Here's our example object for today, a simple student object. We've got a good mix of data types in here, right? We have a string for the name, a number for the age, a boolean for his admin, and even an array of strings for the courses. Pretty standard stuff. Now this is the object we're about to put through the magic machine. And voila, one single command, JSON.stringify, and our object is transformed into this perfect standardized string. Now, the number one thing you have to notice here is the double quotes. They're everywhere, not just on the string values, but on the keys, the property names too. This isn't optional, it's a hard and fast rule of the JSON format. Keys must be in double quotes. Okay, this is super important. You need to know what JSON.stringify just completely throws away. See, JSON is all about data, not behavior. So anything that's specific to JavaScript's logic gets tossed. That means functions, methods on your object, gone. Any properties with a value of undefined, poof, vanished. And symbolic keys and values, also ignored, they just disappear from the final string. So the basics are pretty straightforward, right? But what happens when our objects get a little weird, a little more complex? What happens when they start referencing themselves? And there it is, the dreaded error message, converting circular structure to JSON. This is the one that gives developers cold sweats. It happens when you have a circular reference, like object A has a property that points to object B, and object B has a property that points right back to object A. When JSON.stringify sees that, it gets stuck in an infinite loop and just gives up. It throws its hands in the air and crashes. So how do we fix this infinite loop nightmare? Well, we use the powerful second argument of JSON.stringify, the replacer. Think of this as your secret weapon. You can give it an array of property names you want to keep, which is cool, but the real power comes when you give it a function. That function lets you look at every single key value pair and decide what to do with it. Okay, so using a replacer function is actually pretty simple. It's basically 4 steps. First, you just pass your function in as that second argument. Then stringify is going to call your function for every single key value pair in the object. Step 3, inside your function, you just write an if statement to look for the problematic key, the one causing the circular reference. And finally, when you find that key, you just return undefined. That tells Stringify to just skip it. For everything else, you just return the value as is. Easy. Oh, and here's a quick pro tip for you, a real quality of life improvement. The third argument to Stringify is called space. If you just pass it a number, like 2, it'll automatically pretty-print your JSON output with 2 spaces of indentation. Trust me, when you're looking at logs or debugging, this makes your JSON a million times more readable. It's a lifesaver. All right, so we've made it through the first half of the journey. We took our complex object and squashed it down into a nice, clean JSON string. Awesome. But that's only half the battle, right? Now we gotta go the other way. We need to turn that string back into a living, breathing JavaScript object we can actually use. And for that, we have the perfect tool for the job. JSON.parse. It's the yin to Stringify's yang. It does exactly what you think it does. You hand it a valid JSON string, and it hands you back a brand new JavaScript object. It's that simple. Super direct, super useful. But wait, there's one more little gotcha you need to watch out for. Let's say your original object had a proper JavaScript date object in it. When you stringify it, that date becomes a string. Then when you parse it back, it's still just a string. JSON.parse is smart, but it's not a mind reader. It has no way of knowing that that specific string should be a date object. So how do we fix this? And this brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the last but super important part of our JSON toolkit. How do we give JSON.parse a little hint, a little nudge, to handle these special cases and bring our data types back to life perfectly? The answer is the reviver function. And if that name sounds familiar, it should. It's the perfect mirror image of the replacer we used with Stringify. It's an optional second argument you can pass to JSON.parse. And just like the replacer, it's a function that gets called for every single key value pair, but this time it happens as the object is being built. This gives you the awesome power to intercept values and transform them on the fly. And check this out. Here's exactly how you do it. We call JSON.parse, but we also pass in our reviver function. Inside that function, we just check, hey, is the key for this value equal to date? If it is, then instead of just returning the raw string value, we create a new date object from that string and return that instead. For any other key, we just return the value as is. And boom, just like that, our date object is back, fully revived, and our data is perfectly restored. All right, we did it. We've gone the full round trip from object to string and all the way back again. And we even handled the tricky bits like circular references and dates. So let's do a quick recap of the awesome JSON toolkit you have at your fingertips now. Okay, so here's your cheat sheet. You've got JSON.stringify to turn your objects into strings. You've got the replacer argument to customize what gets included. You've got the space argument to make it all look pretty. We also briefly mentioned the toJS method, which lets an object define its own serialization. Then, coming back the other way, you have JSON.parse to turn that string back into an object. And the secret weapon there is the reviver, which lets you transform values and bring things like date objects back from the dead. That's the whole shebang. And that's a wrap. You now have this complete, powerful toolkit to handle pretty much any data serialization problem that JavaScript can throw at you. So I'll leave you with this question. Think about your own projects right now. What complex data, what tricky objects could you finally tame using a custom replacer or a reviver? Go give it a try.